Did you know nearly 70% of journalists are wrestling with the impact of their job on their mental health? And a staggering 82% believe their media outlets are rooting for the Bharatiya Janata Party. These are just a few of the mind-boggling revelations from the freshly released Lokniti-CSDS report, Media in India, Trends and Patterns. This report, based on a survey of 206 journalists, aims to decode the media's influence on our lives and its effect both on consumers and journalists. Let's find out. Diversity was key in this survey as it included journalists from across mediums, TV, print, digital, and across states, yet a whopping 75% of those surveyed were male. The study revealed a stark reality. The job is taking a significant toll on journalists' mental health. 85% of women and 66% of men respondents said as much, while 3 out of 4 journalists reported their job adversely affected their physical health. Younger journalists and those in English language industry bear the brunt of these health woes. Add the recent global economic slowdown to the mix and you've got a worrying picture with 45 reporting layoffs in their organizations. Job security, a thing of the past, especially for mid-level journalists. Let's switch gears to politics. The perceived media bias towards BJP that we mentioned earlier, this inclination seems to be even more pronounced amongst independent journalists, as an 89% voiced the same concern, suggesting an overarching trend across media platforms. Furthermore, journalists are feeling the sting of job insecurity, often tied to their political leanings. An alarming 16% revealed that colleagues were asked to leave due to their political inclinations. The fear is palpable, with over half of the journalists expressing worry about losing their job due to their political views. While we narrow down to English news organizations, the numbers remain disconcerting. 4 out of 5 journalists from these organizations agree that their media houses generally favor the BJP. There's also an unsettling bias against minority coverage. Almost 80% of journalists felt that news organizations display an unfavorable bias towards Muslims. This disheartening trend indicates a pressing need for media to re-evaluate its inclusivity and representation norms. Moving on to the digital domain, expressing opinions on social media isn't all fun and games. 30% of journalists feel hesitant, and for good reason. A whopping 64% have faced online harassment at least once. Now consider this, women in particular report feeling extremely unsafe on platforms like Twitter and Facebook. However, we need to view these statistics in context. The majority of the survey respondents were men, and therefore the report figures may be underrepresenting the actual discomfort and insecurity faced by female journalists in the digital space. What does the future hold for journalism in India? Well, it's not a rosy picture. Press freedom seems to be on the decline, with 72% of journalists feeling less free in their roles. News coverage quality, most feel it's spiraling downwards, except for news websites which show a glimmer of hope. As a result, over half of the journalists have considered quitting their media jobs altogether, hampered only by financial constraints. So where does this leave us citizens? With a challenging landscape rife with mental health issues, political bias, job insecurity, digital harassment, and waning press freedom. Even more worrying is the spread of fake news, a concern that is not lost on the very people responsible for disseminating news. Nearly 3 out of 4 journalists, that's 75%, have expressed serious concerns over receiving inaccurate information on social media. 2/3 of the journalists surveyed admitted to worries about being misled by false or inaccurate information posted online. There's an alarming undercurrent we can't ignore. Journalists are feeling a strong pull to quit, to walk away from the very profession that is considered a pillar of democracy. Journalism, often dubbed the fourth estate, is critical to the functioning of any democratic society. It is the watchdog that keeps the power in check, the beacon of truth in a sea of misinformation. So when journalists are dissatisfied, it's not just about being unhappy in a job like it could be in other professions, say IT. It's about the very fabric of a society being at risk. Remember, journalism is more than a job, it's a public service, a solemn responsibility to bring truth to the masses, to hold power accountable. When our journalists are unhappy, our democracy is at stake. When our journalists think of quitting, it's not just a profession we're losing, it's the truth we risk losing. We need to address this discontent for the sake of our society, our democracy, and our future. At Newslaundry, we're committed to preserving journalism's integrity, especially during these crucial times. As a reader-supported, independent news media company, we believe in the necessity of a media ecosystem that is accountable to public and does not depend on corporate and government ads for revenue. And you can help us in our mission. Subscribe to newslaundry.com and pay to keep news free.